Recently, New Jersey Governor Murphy signed Gun Safety Package 3.0 into law. As a retired New Jersey State Trooper and former unit supervisor of the New Jersey State Police Firearms Investigation Unit, I'm going to go through each one of these 7 laws to tell you whether or not I think they will actually help gun violence. Let's get into it. I do have a link below in the description to take you to the gun safety package that Governor Murphy signed into law recently. Are these what I call feel-good laws? Meaning they look good on the surface, so when you look at them, you feel good about them, but they don't actually do much to prevent or stop gun violence. I noticed that none of these 7 call for severe penalties for criminals that use guns when they commit crimes. Also, I noticed that none of these 7 have any impact on mental health issues related to firearms ownership. Again, Governor Murphy and his Attorney General have used recent mass shootings nationwide to target lawful gun owners in their quest to increase gun control in New Jersey. Let's break down these 7 laws. Number 1, allow New Jersey Attorney General to bring cause of action for certain public nuisance violations arising from the sale or marketing of firearms. So this to me is targeting the manufacturers. So in my opinion, this is like saying to Ford and Toyota and General Motors, we're going to hold you responsible if a drunk driver gets in one of your cars that you manufacture and kills someone or hurts them. We're also going to make you responsible if some deranged, mentally ill person gets behind the wheel of one of your vehicles and decides to run over people in a parade, for example. So this to me is a feel-good law. Number 2, requires firearm owners who become New Jersey residents to obtain firearms purchaser ID cards and register handguns acquired out of state. So this, for example, you live in Pennsylvania and you've lawfully acquired firearms there. Now you decide you want to move to New Jersey, and what this law states is that now you have to not only apply for a firearms identification card, which is required to purchase long guns in New Jersey and also purchase ammunition in New Jersey. Not only are you required to apply for one of those, you're also required to register any handguns you have. So this to me is partially a feel-good law because number one, I'm all for background checks. I've always been for background checks. So I don't have a problem with someone who comes into our state to apply for, who has firearms, to apply for and get approved for a firearms identification card. Because it's like, to me, it's like you have a driver's license in Arizona, you move to New Jersey. New Jersey requires that you get a New Jersey license to drive in New Jersey if you're going to be a resident here. So to me, it's very similar. The problem I have is now you have to register handguns. So what about the long guns? So this is an issue that brings up another feel-good law to me in New Jersey. Only handguns are required to be registered, not long guns. So you don't have to register a shotgun or a rifle in New Jersey. You do have to register all handguns. Feel-good law to me because guns are guns to me. I'm not saying I want all guns to be registered. I'm just saying that someone from Pennsylvania, for example, can have 100 rifles and shotguns, move here to New Jersey. They don't have to register them. But if they have one handgun and they don't register it, they're breaking the law. Kind of absurd. Number 3, upgrade certain crimes related to manufacturing firearms from 3rd degree to 2nd degree. Of course, 2nd degree crime in New Jersey is worse. There are more penalties than a 3rd degree crime. This relates to the manufacturing or kit guns, from what I understand. So guns that normally, some people buy kits or parts of guns and they put together the gun of their choice, so they basically make a custom firearm. To me, this is another feel-good law because most criminals, in my experience, and if you look at the statistics, they don't use guns that they manufacture at home in their homes or kit guns. They're using mostly stolen weapons that are factory-produced firearms. They're not using kit guns. Number 4, revises the definition of destructive device to include certain .50 caliber rifles. Again, I don't know how many people are committing crimes in New Jersey with .50 caliber rifles. To me, this looks like another feel-good law. Number 5, regulate the sale of handgun ammunition and develop systems of electronic reporting of handgun ammunition sales. First of all, handgun ammunition sales are already tracked and regulated in New Jersey. You can't go into a gun store or sporting goods store and just buy ammunition. You have to have a government ID, first of all. You have to have a firearms purchaser identification card, or you have to have a permit to purchase a handgun or a permit to carry, or you have to be a police officer to buy handgun ammunition in New Jersey. It's already regulated. It mandates an electronic tracking system be developed. I don't really have a problem with that because, again, it's already tracked and regulated in New Jersey, and with an electronic system, they'll be able to, say, track or put flags on a purchase. Say if someone purchases a handgun, or rather purchases 3,000 rounds of handgun ammunition, that they could put a flag that could set off a flag. In and of itself, tracking of ammunition is not going to be very helpful in my opinion. I think you have to have it in combination with other factors, such as this person who's bought 3,000 rounds of ammunition, purchased ammunition in the past. In other words, if you can show a pattern that maybe every month or so they buy 100 rounds or 200 rounds, and all of a sudden they're buying 3,000 or 5,000 rounds, maybe in combination with other factors such as social media postings or other things in their background or their history, that in combination with buying a large amount of ammunition might be useful in an investigation. It might be useful in preventing something. In and of itself, I don't think it's going to be very helpful. In combination with other factors, possibly yes. Number 6, requires training for issuance of firearms purchaser ID card, identification card, and permit to purchase handgun under certain circumstances. Also provides that firearms purchaser ID cards include a photograph and thumbprint and remain valid for 10 years. So, personally, I'm all for training. I'm all for safety training. I'm all for you buy a gun for the first time. And I know a lot of people don't agree with this. You buy a gun for the first time, you've never owned a firearm, I think you should be required to take a firearm safety course. Now, should it be regulated by the government? Not necessarily. I think when the government gets involved in regulating training, you're talking about fees and you're talking about a lot of requirements. Maybe the firearms instructors statewide or nationwide can get together and agree on a safety course, or possibly the dealers in the state or nationwide can get together and they can decide when someone's buying a firearm for the first time, they need a certain safety course to go with it. Or maybe there can also be incentives like insurance incentive on your homeowner's insurance. You get a percentage off if you own a firearm and you've had certain training, certain safety training. Also, there could be incentives from gun dealers and gun manufacturers. Maybe they offer a discount on the firearm themselves if you voluntarily take the training. So I'm not against training per se. I'm just against regulating training through the government. As far as the 10-year limit on the firearms ID card, I think in New Jersey, I think this is more of a fee issue. They're concerned about getting a fee. Right now, it costs $5 to get a firearms ID card, and it's good indefinitely. With this new law, I'm guessing the fee is going to go up if it hasn't already, and now it's only good for 10 years. It actually expires. The problem I have with this is I think it's more fee related, because when you get an initial firearms identification card, you have to go through a background process and get your background, your fingerprints, the database checks, references, everything's checked out when you get that card. Now, the firearms ID card in New Jersey is used to purchase ammunition. It's also used to purchase long guns, rifles, and shotguns. So you get a firearms ID card and maybe a year later you decide you're going to go buy a shotgun or a rifle with your ID card. You can walk into a gun store. You still need the NICS check, the National Instant Criminal Background Check, where at point of sale, they're checking your background. They're checking a whole list of databases to see if you were arrested that day or yesterday or 2 hours ago. So you're getting a background check. Now, granted, it's an abbreviated quick background check that's done through the NICS check. It's a federal system, and in New Jersey, it's maintained by the New Jersey State Police. There's a whole unit dedicated to NICS checks. Also, in New Jersey, when you go to buy a handgun, you need to apply for a permit to purchase a handgun, which you need one for each handgun that you want to purchase, and you can only purchase one every 30 days. When you apply for this permit to purchase a handgun, you need another complete background. The police department runs a complete background on you, again, to see if you were arrested yesterday, 2 days ago, a week ago, if you've been committed to a mental health facility, for example. So they're running that for your permit to purchase a handgun. In addition, when you go to buy that handgun at the store, whether it's a week later, a day later, a month later, they are doing another NICS check. All the NICS checks are required at point of sale at the dealer for most purchases. So you're getting another background check at the point of sale. So I'm thinking this 10-year limit on the firearms ID card is all about the fees in New Jersey. Number 7, requires firearms retailers to sell microstamped-enabled firearms upon determination of availability by the Attorney General. So this law is saying that the Attorney General in New Jersey will decide, I'm guessing, when microstamping technology is available enough that they can require it, that he or she can require it in the state of New Jersey. Now, microstamping is a ballistics identification technology that, in theory, allows law enforcement officers to link a cartridge casing found at a crime scene to an actual handgun. So what happens is, and it's this very expensive technology for gun manufacturers to employ. So basically what they do is they put micro-stamping a code on the firing pin of the handgun. And what happens is, and it's unique to each handgun. So what happens is when you use that firearm to fire a round, it actually imprints the code, the micro stamping of it actually micro stamps the code on the actual casing. The empty, well, it's not empty when it hits it, but eventually it's extracted from the, ejected from the weapon after it's used. And that imprint is, in theory, the imprint is on the empty casing. So when the police recover that at the crime scene, they can look at that code. The problem is, though, is that some believe this technology is not reliable. And what happens is, with any firearm, as you fire it under normal use, normal wear and tear, that micro stamping begins to wear. So it's been known that finding one or two empty casings at a crime scene is not enough to identify which weapon it belongs to. They need, I think one study that I read needed up to like 10 or 20 actual casings from the same weapon to say for sure, yes, these casings belong to this particular firearm. So it is a tool. In theory, if it works, it's a tool that may be able to trace, help investigators trace an empty casing, cartridge casing found at a crime scene back to a weapon. The other problem with this microstamping technology is, what's going to stop a criminal from swapping out the firing pin of one handgun with one that doesn't have the microstamping technology? In addition, what's stopping them from just using a file and filing down that microstamping so it doesn't leave an imprint on the casing? So another flaw, in my opinion. I know in California, I think they passed this law in 2007, even though firearms experts were saying you shouldn't pass it because it's not reliable technology. So here we are in New Jersey, adding this to the list of our gun safety laws to help prevent mass shootings and reduce gun violence. This, to me, is a total feel-good law. I don't think this is going to help very much at all. I'm all for law-abiding, responsible gun ownership. And I think responsible to me means you lawfully acquire the firearm, you get safety training. If you've had no training in firearms before, you get some sort of safety course to make sure that you can handle the firearm safely from a certified firearms instructor. It also means securing the weapon in your home or work or wherever you're going to keep the firearm. It means securing it properly, unloaded in a safe, and it means not allowing either children to access it, or if there's someone in your household who shouldn't have access to firearms, it's ensuring that they never have access to the firearms. Not everyone should own firearms. Some people should never own guns. So why not focus on that aspect of firearm ownership, preventing the people that shouldn't have guns from ever getting guns? All in all, I'd say most of these laws are feel-good laws and that they look good on the surface, but they really don't, in my opinion, do much or anything to prevent gun violence or mass shootings. I would have liked to have seen stiffer penalties for people that commit crimes with guns. How about stiffer penalties for people that shoot people with guns or commit other crimes with firearms? I would have liked to have seen more with mental health screening and firearms ownership with these new 7 laws that were just signed. Currently, the only mental health check really in New Jersey, your name is checked whether or not you were involuntarily committed to a mental health facility in New Jersey. Doesn't mean you didn't voluntarily commit yourself to a facility. Your name may not necessarily be on that list if you voluntarily committed yourself. In addition, we all know that even though you may not have been committed to a mental health facility, doesn't mean you don't have mental health issues. So that's currently the only check in place for mental health in New Jersey. Now, of course, if a reference on an application says something, questions your mental health, then the police department is supposed to investigate that further. If there's any other indication of any mental health issues, they are supposed to investigate it further. But if there's nothing in the system, there's really no other check. I would have liked to have seen something maybe combined with social media. For example, these shootings, the one in Illinois and the one in Uvalde, Texas, both of these, and I'm sure many others this applies to, we've seen very graphic and disturbing posts on social media that have come out after the fact, and they say, well, he posted this the day of, he posted this an hour before, he posted this as he was committing this crime. And these posts you see that have come up in the past, and if authorities were notified, maybe they didn't follow through, or maybe they didn't follow through enough. But I would have liked to have seen something along the lines of, if there are certain flags that go off on social media, then the police department would have to document that. And if that individual, for example, applies for a firearm or wants a firearm or has firearms or is in the system, they need to investigate that further. Just my thoughts. I don't know why we can't do that with social media, because as it stands now, if you post something about COVID or your opinion of the vaccine effectiveness, people are all over it. The fact checkers are all over it, and the algorithm picks up anything with COVID or the pandemic or vaccine effectiveness, and there are warnings and censorship plastered all over your posts to warn the people that, I guess, use social media for medical advice that your statement hasn't been fact checked or hasn't been verified or hasn't been proven. I don't know why this same type of censorship or identification, I don't know why this same type of identification can't occur with these violent, disturbing posts that a lot of these shooters have made in the past before they actually carry out their crimes. That's what I would have liked to have seen. Stiffer penalties for criminals committing crimes with guns, and I would have also liked to have seen more mental health screening for firearms, maybe for first-time firearms applicants especially. One final thought. Crimes involving firearms, including mass shootings, occurred in the 18th century as well. The solution then was the Second Amendment, not gun control. Feel free to leave comments, questions, or suggestions in the comments section. I will welcome all opinions and comments. However, I do ask that you are polite with your comments. If you like this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to our channel. And if you do subscribe, hit that notification button so you'll be notified when we release more videos like this. Thanks for watching. Take care and stay safe.